Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're talking about a serious but often overlooked part of the VA claim journey. What happens if you miss your C&P exam or ACE exam? We'll talk about real-life reasons why some veterans don't make it to these appointments, the consequences of missing them, what options you might have, and why the VA often doesn't just reschedule them automatically. Let's get into it. First, let's quickly define what we're talking about. The C&P exam, or compensation and pension exam, is a medical evaluation scheduled by the VA to assess the severity of your claim conditions. An ACE exam, or acceptable clinical evidence exam, is where the VA might decide there's enough evidence in your records to make a decision without an in-person exam. Sometimes it's done purely on paper, but occasionally they'll still contact you for clarification. Either way, these are key pieces of the VA decision-making process. Now, you might be thinking, why would anyone skip a C&P exam? But the truth is, there are several real and valid reasons. Transportation is a big one. Some veterans live in rural or remote areas and simply can't get to the VA or contracted provider. If you don't have reliable transportation, or if you're in a location without a lot of VA infrastructure, it can be almost impossible to make it. Another reason is short notice scheduling. Many veterans report getting less than a week's notice, or even just a few days. If you're working a civilian job, have family responsibilities, or have medical issues that make short notice travel hard, this becomes a huge barrier. Mental health plays a role too. Veterans dealing with PTSD, anxiety, or depression might struggle to leave the house or manage the stress of a medical evaluation. Some simply aren't ready to rehash traumatic events in a sterile medical setting. Others don't even realize what the exam means. They get a letter in the mail or a call from a contractor and don't fully understand that this exam is not optional and is directly tied to the decision on their disability claim. Now, let's talk about what actually happens if you don't go. When you miss your scheduled C&P exam without rescheduling or notifying anyone, the VA can and often will deny your claim, especially if there's no other strong evidence in your file to support a decision. They'll usually label the decision as evidence insufficient for rating purposes, and that can be the end of it unless you take follow-up action. In the case of an ACE exam, if the reviewer requests clarification from you via phone or mail and you don't respond, they may move forward with a decision based only on what they have, which could result in a lower rating or denial. That's the reality. Now, let's look at some pros and cons. The pros of skipping an exam, if there are any, really depend on your situation. For example, if your claim file is already packed with medical records, private DBQs, nexus letters, and your condition is well documented and service connected, you might believe that an in-person exam would be redundant or even risky. Some veterans have experienced C&P exams that go poorly, where the examiner downplays symptoms or misrepresents the visit in their report. In some of those cases, veterans intentionally avoid the exam and choose to let their documented evidence speak for itself. But that's a gamble, and it only works in rare cases where your file is strong enough to stand on its own. Now, the cons are much more significant. The biggest is a flat out denial or a lower rating than you deserve. Missing an exam can also delay your claim. If you appeal later and the Board of Veterans Appeals sees that you didn't show up, they may question your credibility or require additional steps before reconsidering the claim. There's also the risk of being labeled non-compliant, which can affect future claims. Once you skip one exam, VA might be less flexible about giving you the benefit of the doubt down the line. So, how often does this actually happen? It's hard to get precise data, but anecdotal evidence and reports from VA reps suggest that thousands of veterans miss their exams every year, whether intentionally or accidentally. Some don't get the notification in time. Some have outdated contact information. Others just aren't tracking the importance of the appointment, and a fair number just don't feel up to it, physically or emotionally. One question I get a lot is, why doesn't the VA just reschedule the exam? Or, why can't they give you a second or third date to try again? Here's the answer. The VA can reschedule, but they usually won't do it unless you reach out before the exam or give them a valid excuse right after missing it. Once a no-show is recorded and no explanation is given, the claim can move forward without the exam, and usually not in your favor. Contractors like QTC, VES, and LHI don't get paid to chase veterans down. They do what's required, send a letter, make a call, and if you don't respond, they close it out. The VA has to keep its claims process moving, and with the volume they handle, they don't have the resources to schedule multiple appointments for every vet. That said, if you miss one due to something like hospitalization, an emergency, or even anxiety related to your condition, call immediately. You can often get it rescheduled if you explain the situation clearly and quickly. So, what should you do if you missed your C&P or ACE contact? First, call the VA or the exam contractor as soon as possible. Explain the situation honestly. If you have documentation, like a hospital record or a doctor's note, even better. Then, be proactive. File a VA Form 214138 statement in support of claim explaining why you missed the appointment. Attach any supporting documents. If you're working with a VSO, Veteran Service Officer, get them involved. They can sometimes speed up the process or help get the exam rescheduled. And remember, if your claim is denied due to a missed exam, you can appeal. But the longer you wait to fix it, the harder it becomes. In the end, the key takeaway is this: your C&P or ACE exam isn't just a formality, it's one of the most important pieces of evidence the VA uses to decide your claim. Skipping it, even for a good reason, can come with serious consequences. But if you act fast, explain your situation, and stay involved, you may still be able to get your claim back on track. All right, that's it for today's video. If you found this helpful, please give it a like and consider subscribing. I'm always posting new content to help veterans take control of their benefits and understand the system better. And if you've missed an exam before and have advice or a story, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear how you handled it. Until next time, stay informed, stay persistent, and take care of yourself.